how did you train the mind to prepare yourself for the whole world to try to take you down?
Yeah, so I think it was kind of a mix of everything. You know, my entire growing up, you know, like I talk about my parents, I talk about the hard work and the leading by example, and they were always, you know, there was always something to do. There was that. There was me being one of 32 first cousins. Always, everything was competitive. Everything was a competition. We would, you know, now I realize it was my parents trying to tire us out and, you know, hey, run around the pond. Let's see who can run around the pond the fastest as kids. You know, we're like, yeah, let's do it. And so that type of stuff. And so there was that. And then, you know, high school baseball, I had an incredible high school baseball coach that would push us. And we would always joke that we ran more than the track and cross country team. And, you know, he was huge into mental toughness. And, you know, he said he did CrossFit before CrossFit was a thing. That's his joke now. And, you know, we would do these workouts. And now I look back having an exercise science degree and I was like, what the heck were we doing? It was stupid. But it was hard and it was mentally tough, and, you know, that was his deal, and mental toughness, and there was that. And then I had, you know, being in the fire department and those lessons that I learned from that. I think it's just a mix of all of it. I don't think there was one thing that I can pinpoint down or think about the mentality of, you know, what one thing it was. I think it was just a mix of all of it, you know, and like wanting to win the games, having the, you know, the atmosphere where I could do that, and like having those guys that would train with me in the mornings, in the midday, in the afternoon. Those to push me, and, you know, my cousin the same way, and you know, just all of that into one perfect storm. I guess there's not one thing that I can be like, oh yeah, that was it.
How did you feel like you handled the pressure though? Because, you know, during those first few years where it seemed like a lot of pressure,
right?
You know, so many people there, it's on the line, each event matters, or you lose. What did you think about before every event would start, or in the middle when you're like, gosh, I'm exhausted?
Yeah,
like, this person's crushing me right now. How did you stay focused?
Yeah, I think a huge part of that, like I said, was my faith, and not having such a, you know, not having that pressure on. There was still pressure. Like, I'm not going to say that, you know, I didn't have pressure on me, but it took some of that pressure off. And
what would you think about in that moment when you felt like, oh, this pressure is on me? What would you say to yourself, or internal conversation?
The good thing is like I'd had that rope fall, and I'd embarrassed myself greatly, or way more than I was going to embarrass myself again. So it was kind of like, I've already done
the worst.
The worst that it could happen, in my mind, was the worst thing that could happen. So it was like, it's going to be all right, you know. And then the more and more I competed, and the more the years went on, I noticed that, hey, it's not about one event, you know. Like, as long as there's damage control, you know, like there's certain events you're not going to do great at if you can damage control in those events. And I think that was one thing that I kind of figured out a lot earlier than people was, you know, everybody was like, well, when I go out there, I compete against myself and I just do the best that I can, and blah, 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 and all this, you know, the stuff that people want to tell themselves when they don't want to push hard or don't want to take credit for their, you know, something happening. So what I learned was you can watch people and watch, you know, hey, I need to stay ahead of so-and-so. You know, there's times where it bit me in the ass, but it was like, you know, luckily for us, you kind of knew what lane you were in, what place you were in. And so you could figure out, all right, so-and-so is maybe better at this, but if I'm, you know, within either a rep or two or a person or two of them, I can make up points or not lose too many points, and then I can get ahead of them in another event. And so I kind of learned that, you know, you would kind of call audibles in the middle of it. You're like, oh, I got to push here. I need to like do whatever. And so I think that was something that one of the things that I figured out a lot earlier than people was it is a sport. Like, as much as, you know, it's just working out, there is some strategy to it. You're trying to game things, and you're trying to like, all right, I know this movement is kind of a rest for me, so I can kind of push here, or, you know, this movement's going to be a little bit harder, so I need to slow down, and gaming workouts. And that was something I think, you know, training so much and doing so many different things that I did, and the volume that I did, that I learned, you know, I'd done certain combinations of movements. They may not have done the exact workout, but I knew how they kind of played off of each other. And so that was something that I'd learned pretty early on and helped a ton.
That's great. How did you handle fear throughout the career?
Yeah, I mean, there were times where, especially I remember specifically one time in 2013. So I'd gotten 27th on a pool event. I got second on a rowing event. It was the half marathon, but you started out with a 2K sprint, which was the worst thing ever. So I went 27th, second, 7th, I think, on the marathon, and then I went 7th, I think, on the burden run. Well, Kalipa went first. So he had like a huge lead, and I'm just pissed off, and I'm in a horrible mood. And my wife comes up, and we're kind of sitting in the athlete area between events, and she's like, "You don't look like you're having fun." I was like, "I'm not having fun. I'm in, like, I was probably in like third or fourth at the time. This is awful, like, whatever." And she's like, "Go get your stuff." I'm like, "What do you mean get my stuff?" She's like, "Well, if you're not having fun, we need to go home." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna go get my stuff, leave this, like, I trained all year for this." She's like, "You do the best when you have fun." And I'm like, like she's never played any type of sports, like anything like that. She did when she was really young, like she played basketball and stuff like that, but she never in high school. She's the least competitive, could care less about anything CrossFit related. But she was like, "Go get your stuff, we're leaving. Go tell Dave we're leaving." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Then she's like, "Well, then start having fun." And I was like, "All right, well then," I didn't like start having fun immediately, but it turned around. So she always takes credit for, that year that she was.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, you try to have as much fun as you can, and over the years you learned that, when I first started competing, like a month out, like my nerves would start getting me, and you're like, man, butterflies and all that. Well, then, after a year or two, it was like 2 weeks out, then it would start, and then it was like a week out. Now it's
2
like
days before,
Now it's like the event of. Then I start getting a little nervous still. Everybody's like, "You still get nervous?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, I still get nervous." I think when you stop getting nervous, it's not fun anymore.
That's true.
But yeah, I think it's just the nerves and being a competitor, and you have that like before it. You have all this build up, but then literally as soon as 3, 2, 1 go happens, it's just like
you gotta go.
It's just like everything goes away. You talk about flow or whatever it is, but it literally, like, I can't tell you any music that's played during events. You can't hear any of the cheers. You can't hear any of that stuff. You're just kind of in it, and you just kind of go through it. And it's hard to explain. It's just like a competitive nature. It's just, it's hard to. People are like, what makes you so competitive? I'm like, I don't know. It's just something that you just get into, and you don't really think about those things. Yeah, the workout sucks and it's gonna hurt, and for a long time, like I said, I have those certain things that go through my head. I'd write Bible verses on my shoes and think about like the crucifixion of Christ, and those were the things early that really got me. But then it's just like after you've done it for so long, it's what you do.
Yeah.
It's like you just get into that space and you get in that zone, and it's go.
We've already experienced the pain so much. You're like, I know it's gonna suck.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's just
Everyone's
like, when is it gonna hurt?
Yeah.
Like most of the time you're like, all right, this workout's gonna take 10, 15 minutes, but the pain's really gonna set in about minute 9 minutes, depending on whatever the workout is. But yeah, it's like you've almost become not numb to the pain, because it still hurts, but you've almost like embraced that pain, and you just know. It's almost like a sick, twisted thing where you're just like, this is what it is, and it's I was talking, I've got kind of an addictive personality, and there's, some substance abuse in my family history, but I've never had any substance abuse. But I think working out is probably my substance abuse. Yeah, really it is.
How important is pain for everyone in the world to experience on a daily or weekly basis?
It's when you grow, man. It's you never grow and you never move forward when you're comfortable. Like you've got to, as bad as it sounds, you got to go out and you got to seek that stuff. You have to. That's when you get better, and that's when you grow, I think. It's the same as physically, like when it hurts, that's when something good is happening. So you almost embrace that, where it's like, this is going to hurt, but I know on the other side I'm going to come out better. And it's the same way mentally. It's like, if you're not pushing, you're not growing.
Why do so many people resist pain when they know?
I think people just, it's either their upbringing, or it's they've never had that, or they just don't enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy pain. Like, let's be honest. We talk about like some of the most miserable experiences. When you're done with it, you're like, that was awesome. Like you go out and seek these like challenges. I never want to do this again. But this in the middle of it, you're like, I went on this elk hunting trip for 6 days, and for the first 3 days it was awesome. The 4th day, downhill. We didn't see any elk. I hiked 60 miles in 6 days, like sun up to sundown, going through the woods, and I'm exhausted. Like, this is miserable. Yeah. Like, I hate this. And then I got done. I'm like, I can't wait to do that again. Like, you're just like, it's sick and it's twisted, but like you're growing in that, as long as it's productive pain. Like, there's certain things that aren't productive, but as long as it's something good, you're on the other side, you're going to come out better. And I don't know if it's hard for me sometimes to relate to other people that are like, how do you get there, that you want to compete, or you want to go to that pain? I'm like, how do you not want to? How do you not see the benefit of it? It's hard sometimes for me to like talk to people that don't get that, like you get it, we're just talking about it, but it's hard for me, like it's just hard to like relate to that because I don't know what makes me want to do that. But my wife, she's similar. She's like, I don't want to do that.
Care,
I don't want to do anything that's painful. Like for me, it's just how I do it.
Why do you think you're wired that way to want it?
I don't know. I think it's that perfect mix of everything that we talked earlier. It's just.
Because you want to win that bad.
I want to win that bad. It's not even I want to win that bad. I don't want to lose. I don't want to make an idiot of myself. Like I said, it could be just us two and nobody else could be watching, but it still just drives me crazy. And it's ridiculous. You know, like if you really look back and like, yes, you know, like we're saying, you want to grow through pain, but like some of the stuff, it's like, why does that cause? Like, why am I so caught up in that? Sure. But it's just the way I am. It's just the way I'm wired. It's the way I've always been wired.
How did you meet your wife?
Met my wife getting my hair cut. I was a firefighter getting off shift, and we had a mutual friend that she cut my hair and she colored Hillary's hair. And so while Hillary was getting her hair colored, I was getting mine cut, and we'd actually both gotten out of like 4 or 5 year long relationships. We were both miserable in those relationships and finally got out of them. And I was a perfect gentleman to every woman that I ever dated. My mom was always like, open every door, do whatever. And I was a jerk to Hillary. And she kept coming. I was like, I'm not ready to get in a relationship, you know, like,
have some fun. I gotta go to that spring break trip.
Exactly. And so I'm like, was a complete just jerk to her.
Really?
And she just kept coming and was like, you know, I don't know. She gives it like doesn't take any crap either, and would just like, there was one time, this is awful, and I'm such a jerk for doing it, but she came to visit me at the fire station, kind of met her, introduced. This was like a little bit later on when we were like, we'd kind of hung out and talked and text and all that stuff for probably 3 or 4 months, and I was just like, you know, I'm not ready, and all this stuff. So she comes to the fire station. I introduced her to all the guys, and she's going to leave, and you know, I take her out to her car, open the door, let her in, and she's like, so what are we? Are we talking? Are we texting? You know, what's our
together? Are we? And
I'm like, I don't like titles. The stupidest thing I could have ever said, ever. And she goes, don't ever talk to me again.
Wow.
I was like, okay, that's not good. So the next day.
So you text her the next day?
I didn't text her the next day because I was like, all right, I'm going to see what happens. The next night she goes, why the hell have you text me all day? I was like, you told me not to. And so I was like, all right, this girl, you know. So she, you know, she can dish it out and she's perfect. Like she's completely, the statement opposites attract are literally me and my wife.
Really?
But we work really well together, and she supports me in everything, and I support her in her things. And you know, she could care less about anything CrossFit related. You know, she
really, even this is your whole life.
Whole life, man. This is
she
my
doesn't
life.
care about it.
Listen to this. So she
supports you and shows
she
up.
Supports, yeah, heck yeah.
She goes
she's
to the
there.
game,
she's my biggest fan, but she could care less. Like as long as, you know, whatever. And so we have 3 kids. Our oldest, Lakeland. She bought all the most expensive, like, dolly clothes for her, and Lakeland hates them now. But at the time, you know, Lakeland maybe wore this stuff once, twice, whatever. So I'm doing some laundry one night with her. And so fold laundry, I take it up to Lakeland's room. I open this closet, and it's just like the amount of money hits me that we spent on these clothes. And it's just like the light. And I'm like, ah. Oh. And so I'm like, whatever. So, you know, and we had some infertility issues and all that stuff, and Lakeland's adopted, and all 3 of our kids are adopted. But so I, you know, didn't really, like, I would give her crap about spending the money, but I'm like, hey, you know, we've waited long enough for this kid. Like, you know, I want her to, and so this is years later. And so I walk back downstairs and I'm like, not to be a dick. Like, I just want to know, how much money do you think is in that closet up there? And she's like, it's a hobby. And I was like, it's an expensive hobby. And she goes, well, if you weren't so good at CrossFit, that would be an expensive hobby. And I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. Like, that just pays for this stuff. Like, this is what I do. And she's like, well, you know what I mean. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't know what you mean. So that's in a nutshell, that's our relationship.
If you're looking for more greatness in your life, make sure to check out this video right here. And also check out our free PDF, The 3 Secrets to Unlock the Power of Your Mind to help you change your life. Download it right here.
Deep sense of self-worth that you matter. And guess what? Everyone matters. Whether you matter to 1 people or 1 million people, everyone matters.